Welcome to Terra Talking, the podcast that's named after the blog that's just me, telling stories to offer help, healing, and hope as you journey into your passionate, purposeful, and prosperous life. Thanks for coming along on the ride, and now on to today's topic.
Welcome to another episode of Terra Talking, and I am so grateful to have a wonderful guest with me here today, so you don't have to hear just my rambles. I am going to be introducing you to my beautiful new friend, Lisa. Lisa and I connected on Instagram over a post regarding, I don't remember exactly which post it was, but it was something about the mindset of moving forward. And Lisa and I just started this beautiful conversation, and I thought, you know what, hold up, we need to have this conversation for other people to hear and learn from, just because your story is one I just think a lot of people need to be touched by. So why don't you go ahead and give me your quick bio? Who are you? What do you want to bring to us today? And yeah, just let me know more about you.
Hi, thank you for having me. So my name is Lisa. I am a mom of two little girls, 7 years old and 8 years old. I am currently a Reiki 2 practitioner and an essential oil doTERRA wellness advocate. I did battle breast cancer 4 years ago. Luckily for me, it was early stage that I found myself. And I went through all the channels with the doctors and, this and this. And, right away you think, oh my God, I'm going to die. But after really sitting down and sitting with it and going through the appropriate routes that I needed to do, I was able to change my mindset from, oh my God, I'm going to die, to, oh my God, I got this. And I just implemented therapy and Reiki and essential oils into my daily life and into my treatment. And it just got me through. And that's,
I remember that one of the things that I just thought was so amazing was how you had said, I kind of had shifted from this place of, that fear of death, like you just said. I mean, like, does it really get any more scary in life than thinking you're facing your own mortality? And yet you were able to turn that around and really know that you were able to take charge, and this was your movement forward. Tell me a little bit about then. Had you used Reiki before? Had you been exposed to it? How did the Reiki come in? And then I know from my own exposure to Reiki, essential oils are a big part of that. So how did that tie in, where you first learned about Reiki, wanted to use it, and then going through the certification process?
Okay, sure. So essentially, when I did my treatment through Sloan Kettering, which is they handled it fantastic. And basically they said, we need to set you up with a therapist. And I said, well, why? And we need to have family therapy. We need to be able to bring your kids into this and let them know what was going on. Now, this was 4 years ago. My kids are 2 and 3, and I just did not feel it was appropriate to have them sit not only with a therapist, but to say, mommy has this, and, this is what can happen, blah, blah, blah. So I found my own therapist, and this therapist is fantastic. She's here on Long Island, and she's very into mindset work, very into, what you put out there is what you bring in. And she referred me to a friend of hers who was a Reiki master. And she said, why don't you just give it a try? For those of you who don't know, and I'm sure you do, Terra, but for those of the people out there that don't know what Reiki is, it's a Japanese form of energy healing. And what it does is it relaxes the body so that it can, naturally heal itself. So finally I gave in, with all my hesitation. I had heard of Reiki, but what am I going to feel? How am I going to think?
So many questions.
And I walked into this woman's room, and she said, okay, this is your situation. Like, I know your therapist told me a little bit about your current diagnosis, and this is what we're going to do. She laid me on a table, closed my eyes, and she did all her energy work with her hands over me. And she said to me, "Who is the man with the checkered shirt and the white hair?" And I said, "What?"
Wow.
And she said to me, "I see a man, older, white hair, very concerned about you, and he's holding you. He's like, has his hands under your head." And I go, "Well, do you mind me asking what color the checkered shirt is?" And she says, "Well, it goes from like a greenish to a red." And I said, "Oh my God, that's my grandfather."
Oh.
And my grandfather, I was born on his birthday. On his 60th birthday, I was born. So we were like super tight, super connected. And she said, "He has his hands under you and he's pointing to your breast." And she goes, "And I see all the black around it." And I knew then that he was watching me.
Wow.
And that the combination of the traditional medicine and the Reiki and my grandfather was going to get me through this. And then we did a couple of sessions with just the Reiki. And for the first couple of sessions, he would appear, either his aura or she would actually see him. And then she said to me I was having a hard time relaxing. And she said, "Okay, I'm going to try this oil." And she put it, on her hand, and she just inhaled this, and she would use crystals. And I just, at that moment in those sessions, I knew I was going to be okay. I can't explain it, but I just knew I was going to be okay.
That is an amazing way to describe exactly. I love how you just said it's just a Japanese energy treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that there can be this sense that you start getting real woo into some of this like Reiki and crystals and oils, and yet it's just about moving the energy. And I talk about everything being energy all the time. So I love how you just brought that down to being such a simplistic, explanation of what happened. And how amazing it is that you had someone who could be kind of that go-between between your grandfather's presence and you,
Right.
your energy here in this dimension.
Right.
So the essential oils started to become a part of your treatment within that.
Right.
Is that part of what then led you to wanting to research more about the oils and how you were going to use them? And was there anything else through the kind of the more woo treatment that kind of helped you begin to shift the mindset, or was it the combination of all of that stuff with your therapist, and as well as just your own upbringing, your own, sense of who you were?
It was, look, I'm not going to lie, I was terrified. And if I'm being honest, I think more than anything, it was, oh my God, I'm going to lose my hair. Oh my God, what am I going to tell my kids? Oh my,
Yeah, because they were so young. I mean, to even begin to understand that.
Right. And I remember I was at a dinner party, and somebody said, "Oh, don't make a big deal about losing your hair. It's just hair." And I said, "Really?" Because I brought my shaver with me. I thought maybe we could all do this together. And everybody was like, "Oh, no way, no way." And
wow.
I realized that people have this stigma around it, around being like bald. And my thing wasn't being bald. My thing was, people are gonna see me and say, "Oh, that poor girl," And so once I went, because what I would do is I had my chemo treatments every other week for 8 weeks. So it would be on a Monday. And the way it was laid out was that I would do my chemo treatment on that Monday, and one day within that same week, I would do my Reiki treatment and my therapy.
Okay, that makes sense.
And I remember going for the first treatment, and the doctor said to me, "The nurse will call you tomorrow or the next day and see how you're feeling. don't worry, you're going to feel very, very sick.
Oh,
Don't
worry.
be alarmed. And I said, oh my goodness. So I went to the to do the Reiki. I went to do the chemo for my therapy, and the nurse called me and she said to me, how you feeling? And I said, I feel good. And she says, well, what do you did take your medication, did you not? You know, your treatment. And I said, yes, I did. And she says, and you don't feel sick? And I said, no, I don't.
Wow.
And she says, wow, well, I'm going to call you tomorrow because you're definitely going to start throwing up. You're definitely going to feel sick. And I said, okay, call me tomorrow. And she called me tomorrow and she says, Lisa, you know, I hope you're doing well. I'm sure you're very, very sick. I'm sure you're very, very sick. And I know if you don't want to be on the phone, I said, I am not sick. And she's like, well, do you mind asking me how that's possible? And I said, well, I went to Reiki and she used some essential oils in my Reiki treatment. And I don't know, I don't feel sick. And she says, well, that's impossible. And I
Wow.
said, I'm sorry you feel that way. I said, but you know what? I don't feel sick. And with all due respect, I feel like you want me to feel sick. And she's like, well, no. She goes, I'm just going by statistics. And I said, well, I think I'm living proof that statistics are not always right because I don't feel sick. And Terra, I tell you, God, you know, hand to the cross, I did not throw up. I did not have nausea. I did not feel excessively tired. Any of those symptoms that, you know, go along with chemotherapy, I did not have. And that was when I said, you know what? This is something people need to know about because it was living proof to me that I was able to get through this with alternative medications, that it wasn't all about just the Western medicine. And I'm not saying that didn't help because I would have never, ever gone this route, especially having 2 little kids, without using the traditional treatment. But having that extra layer of support that helped me to, I guess, heal quicker. It just solidified to me that I was going to be okay. You know?
Yeah. For sure. And it seems to me like and again, going back to the fact that so much of what my story with my daughter and some of her medical struggles are, is that at some point when you decide that you are going to be better, you are going to make it through something, you are going to get up and not feel sick. And I'm not trying to say in like this really toxic positivity type of way, just that there is a sense of this mindset of if you are willing to kind of sink into those symptoms like the nurse wanted you to, maybe you would have felt them. There is nothing wrong with also wanting to say, I'm not going to be a statistic. I'm not going to succumb to this. It doesn't mean that it all magically goes away. I mean, I think there's obviously many, many layers to what helped you. I think that it goes towards the fact that for you, you knew I am taking the right steps to put my mindset in a better place. Know that I'm helping myself beyond just following this kind of Western medicine party line of, oh, you got treatment, now you're going to be sick. And I think that that's an amazing part of your story, just that you were able to make that mindset shift, as well as then you started to believe it. And I think that's the biggest key too, is that you can accept a whole lot of new beliefs, but sometimes you have to actually feel into the belief, and you lived it, right? Like you jumped in with both feet to that new belief.
Right.
So I'm curious, did you ever then actually go bald? Like that was one of your fears.
I actually did.
Okay.
I actually did.
Did you end up doing the shaving thing with friends, or did it just happen
It
on your terms?
actually, look, I'm not going to say it was fantastic, but luckily for me, this is a time when there's so many things you can do to like fashionista up, if that's what you want to say,
Yes.
a bald head. I had a scarf that I wore, all long and decorative. I wore big earrings. I had a wig. Um, you know, it looked, it was weird. It was weird to see myself without the hair.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember they said to me, on your third treatment, and this they were right about, on your third treatment, you're going to lose your hair. And I said, "Ugh, listen, me and you, we have this, you know,
Aww.
this bond." And I would talk to it, and I would say, you know, don't leave me. But if you have to, it's okay, because you're gonna come back bigger and better, right? Like we're gonna, and people would look at me like, why are you talking to your hair? And I believed that like what I was putting out there was what I was going to get back. So yes, so I did.
Absolutely.
Now I did not I was not with the company of essential oils that I'm with now, so I was not taking those oils internally. She was just essentially using them for the Reiki energy.
Okay.
And I think to get me into a more relaxed state prior to doing the Reiki. Um, if I was using the brand of oils that I am using now, I may have tried, and I was able to take them internally, or if I knew more about it and knew that oils could be taken internally, I think that I may have been able to keep at least some of my hair, you know,
Yeah.
because, and then the other thing for me now is, look, I don't want to put toxins into my body, and I'm not saying that I'll never take medication or I'll never go to the doctor or I'll never take aspirin. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is it's not my first choice anymore. And I remember also being in the therapy, you know, in the chemo chair and saying to the nurse, boy, this must be a hard job. And she said, no, believe it or not, she said, people who are going through what you're going through are the most level-headed people you will ever want to meet.
Wow.
And I said, yeah, whatever, you know. And I got to tell you, I came out of this treatment on the other side, and thank God for that. But I do see things differently. The things that would upset me don't upset me anymore. The things that I tried to control, I don't feel the need to control anymore. I kind of just believe it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
So it not only changed my mindset during the treatment, but it changed my mindset going forward in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is what I think. I always say this. I would never wish that, walking right up to that line of this is a big life-changing moment, right? And it literally, like I said before, you're facing your own mortality. For me, I was facing the possible loss of my child. I would never wish that reality check on anyone, and yet the perspective that you gain when you start to see what are you doing with your life, where is life really going, and what are some of those shifts, like you just said. You think you're in control of your everyday, and we spend so much energy trying to control these small, really end up being meaningless things, and really when you just go with the flow. And that's like my Facebook group is Grow with the Flow, because it really is about, like, life is going to happen to you. You had no idea you were going to be hit out of the blue. Like you said, you found your own breast cancer. And did you first, I'm assuming you found lumps. Did you have a sense of what and how your life was going to change through that? Or were you still in that, I hope that this isn't what I think it is phase? How did you react?
I remember I was talking to my mom. I was sitting on my bed and I just happened to scratch right here. And I said, wait a minute. And I felt like a little tiny bump. And I went to my mom and I said, Mom, can you feel this? And she's like, oh, it's nothing, it's nothing. But I knew. I knew. Like, I hoped that it wasn't that, but I knew that it was. And I remember going for the biopsy, and I said to the doctor, well, what do you think it is? Well, the doctor, what do you think it is? And she's like, well, I think you should just pray for the best, but prepare for the worst.
Wow.
And I said, okay. So I know I have breast cancer. But yet when I heard it, I still crashed. And the doctor's words were, you have some cancer cells on this. And I said, well, what does that mean? Does that mean I'm going to die? And he said, we're going to try not to make that happen. I just knew.
Okay.
So then he said to me, I want you to go to Sloan because this is who I would send my own family to, blah, blah, blah. So I went there, and I remember saying to myself, okay, I remember saying to myself, okay, like, I'm crying. Okay, oh my God, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. He said, no, go to Sloan, go to Beth. That's what I did. And I went there, and I was like, like when you're just like, you have to go to like an event, but you don't want to go to that event, and you're just like all pissed off about it. So that was me. So I walk in like this. Yeah, I don't want to be here, And the doctor comes in, and she says, okay, the tests show that you do have a small cancer, and you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. And I said, I hope you're right. And she says, we're going to go in. And it was December, like right around Christmas. So like December 13th, I got diagnosed. December 27th, I went for the surgery to remove it. And
she took some, what a time of year. Oh,
yeah.
Goodness.
She took some, Christmas has a whole new meaning,
Oh, I bet.
And she took some of the, she took some lymph nodes or whatever. And I went back to see her the second, for the follow-up. And she said to me, okay, you have a small, it was like, I think it was, they thought it was 1.7 centimeters. I think it was 1.2 centimeters. And she said to me, we're going to treat you. We're going to give you, I said, but do I have to do chemo? Yes. She says, you're too young not to be proactive about this. And I said, okay, so we'll do what we're going to do. What it was now, and learning about this, is that breast cancer has many forms. You hear breast cancer and you just think it's a tumor that grows. Right. There's ones that are feeding off of progesterone. There's ones that are feeding off of estrogen. There's ones that are HER positive, meaning that the bad cells just keep duplicating themselves over and over and over again. And then there's the triple negative, which is what I had. Okay. So essentially there was no exact cause as to what made this thing develop. All they knew was that some cells somewhere, regenerated itself abnormally.
Right.
So how can we not give you chemo? We have to give you chemo, because we can't just give you a pill and say, okay, we're going to slow down your estrogen, or we're going to stop your estrogen, and it's going to be gone. We don't know if any slipped out. So 10 years from now, you could have it sitting on your bone in your leg, and you end up with bone cancer. So like, I didn't know that. People don't, I think, know that when they hear breast cancer until they're actually in it. So I was very lucky that it was a treatable kind. It was very, very early on. It was clear margins. And so I had everything going, in the right direction, right, but still scary in and of itself. And then I just feel like everything happened the way it was supposed to happen, and that made me the person I am now.
Oh, that is such an amazing place to get to, really, truly. Mm-hmm. Not stay stuck in the victimhood of it. And again, it's very easy to kind of sit back as someone who's never been diagnosed with breast cancer and say like, oh, like you're a hero, you do all this stuff. And that to be able to actually connect with you more and realize that so much of how people come through this is based on their mindset. What else are they seeing? Where else are they wanting to go? And realizing this is a step on your journey. It's not the entirety of who you are as a breast cancer survivor, that you really have started to bring this together with, I went through this, I learned this, and now I'm helping other people, because of what I learned. And that is part of what I think, having that mindset shift of knowing that when you've gone through something, whatever that is, and you're able to kind of bring it back around and say, okay, there was a reason for this. There was a purpose in this. And I just think that, all the parts of your story are amazing within it. The fact that your grandfather was there with you, that you were able to find these therapists to help you. And that was the therapy part of it something like I know that you said like, I'm a little iffy with the whole having a 2- and 3-year-old sit down and talk about this. But as far as for yourself, because I feel like there is almost this stigma that some women have around needing a therapist, whatever that therapy is for, right? But was there any of that to you that you had to go through, or were you instantly like, oh yeah, sign me up for as much help as possible? Was there any part of you that had to battle that, I don't need help?
Never.
I don't need you. You
No.
always knew that you were going to
I
accept.
always knew that I was not going to get through this on my own. And the beauty of it, and I feel again like this is what was supposed to be on my journey, was that, you have those therapists where, there's so many different kinds of therapy, but you have those therapists where you are, okay, sit down and tell me what it is that you're feeling, and then I'm going to tell you how you should feel.
Right.
There's that type, and then there's the type that my therapist is. And my therapist, because I still see her today, because not only did she get me through the diagnosis, but she teaches me a lot of mindset stuff. So her way of teaching me was, okay, so you want to come from high vibration. You don't want to say, oh my God, why did this happen to me? You want to say, I am going to beat this.
Yeah.
She talks a lot about what you put out into the universe is what you get back. What you put after the word I am is what you become. And so it changed my life, because it's, where I would normally maybe 4 years ago say, oh man, I can't do this. I stink at this. I now automatically will say, I am going to do this and I am going to kill it. And so I know I'm not one of those people that are against therapy. I think therapy can be, if you have the right therapist, the best thing you can do for yourself. Because you learn so much about how your mind works and how you become who you are. And, and like I said, I thank God every day that I found the kind of therapist that I found, because if this woman had been like, okay, sit down and tell me how you're feeling. And, she was like, okay, well, let me tell me a little bit about your life. What are your habits? Okay, well, I'm a people pleaser. I like to do what other people think I should. I don't like people to get mad at me. I don't want to be in conflict. Where she's like, okay, and there's your cancer diagnosis. You're not taking care of you. You're not nourishing your soul. You're not nourishing your mind. You're not nourishing your heart. When you get out of that and you start saying, you know what? No, my body is saying, I'm too tired for this. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. And I'm true to myself. I don't think I would have ever learned that had I not gone through this journey. I think I would have still been the Lisa of 4 years ago that let people walk all over me and did what everybody else wanted me to do. and raise my kids the way everybody said I should and not standing up for myself. So as much as I hated that diagnosis, it was almost a blessing because it took me to where I am and who I am today. If that makes sense.
It makes total sense. And I think, again, this is part of the energy that really drew me to you and your story, is that you were able to say, this piece of my life sucked. This piece of my story is horrible. And it's ugly and it's brutal. Yet, without this ugly brutality, I wouldn't be the beautiful person I am today.
Right.
That shift through adversity is, I mean, that's part of my mission and purpose here too, is to be able to say, you know, whatever your ugly, brutal part of life is, and I say it as life gets beautiful, right? It's brutal and beautiful. I didn't come up with that. I think that was a Glennon Doyle thing. But it is that sense that it can be both beautiful and ugly at the same time. And which are you going to choose to focus on? It's two sides of a coin. And it sounds like for you, there was already almost an underlayment of knowing that, and then being able to have this diagnosis forced you to come to a place where you were able to say, I need help, right? And you were willing to accept that. And that's part of what your healing really, truly came from. And I think it's a part of the absolute magnetic beauty that is you and your story and your journey.
Thank you.
So, because I feel like we could talk for another 3 hours, I need to kind of wrap this up so that we can make it into a digestible podcast. What would you say are some of your tips, or if you had anything to leave my listeners with regarding mindset through adversity? What would you want to say in just summation of your journey and for anyone else who's listening to this today?
I would tell anybody at any phase of their life to be true to themselves and don't let fear or any negative outlying thoughts from other people, change who you are. Always listen to your gut. And because it's true, what you put out there and how you feel about yourself in your mind, the story you tell yourself is going to get you, it's going to make you or break you. It's going to get you through the toughest of times, and it's going to also bring you the greatest of times. So even though things may, like in my case, they felt dismal and like I wasn't going to be able to do this, it just, you see it as a blessing in a way, because you just, people say I'm woo-woo. Maybe I am woo-woo. I don't know. But
I own that
I love my Reiki.
I think it's great.
I love my essential oils. Would I have done this 4 years ago? Get on Instagram and do lives and sell essential oils and do a podcast? No way. No way. So never underestimate yourself, and always just be true, be authentic to you, and come from an authentic place. And I believe you can get through anything. That's from my experience.
That is amazing. I love that you just were able to bring that all back, and you're right. Be true to who you are. And that's such an amazing thing to remember for all of us. So thank you so much. And I just want to say Lisa she has a beautiful Instagram presence. She does work with oils. She does work with some Reiki. Her information is going to be in the show notes of this episode. And I hope that you'll go over and follow her on Instagram and just share more of her story, because it is a beautiful story. I thank you so much for being here, Lisa. And
thank you for having me.
Sharing of your heart, of your story. And I know that this is going to touch people's lives. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And you are the first person I ever really got deep down with about this subject. So it feels
that I have that knack for just digging right into people's stories.
It's good, because I really want to get that message out to other women and men and children that, you can do it. You can get through anything.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of Terra Talking. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Find me pretty much everywhere on the interwebs as @Terra Talking, that's TerraTalking, or at my blog, terratalking.com. Your reviews, comments, and shares are always so appreciated. May you prosper well as you live your most passionate, purposeful life this week. And as always, keep on keeping on.